At the end of the 18th century, Latin America was still a vast colonial world under the Spanish crown. Religion was everywhere. The Catholic Church was powerful, and loyalty to Spain was law. But beneath the surface, a different current was forming. Ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity carried across the ocean from Europe, and often guarded in secret by one of the most controversial groups of the era, the Freemasons. In today's video, we'll uncover how Masonry connected to Latin America's independence, with Venezuela at the very center of the story. From the first failed conspiracy of Gual and España, to the travels of Francisco de Miranda, to the leadership of we'll trace how networks of Masonry tied into revolutions across the continent. And we'll also ask, were the Masons true liberators, or simply another elite group guiding history from the shadows? Asterisk, before we dive in, what do you think? Were the Masons fighting for liberty, or for power? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading your takes. Masonry in Europe and the United States. Asterisk, to understand Masonry in Latin America, we first need to look to Europe and the United States. Freemasonry was not born in Caracas or Buenos Aires. Its roots stretch back to England and Scotland in the 17th century, where lodges of stonemasons transformed into societies of philosophy, ritual, and brotherhood. By the 18th century, Masonic lodges had spread across Europe. They attracted intellectuals, military men, politicians, and reformers. Their rituals were secret, but their ideas often echoed the Enlightenment: liberty, equality, fraternity. It was no coincidence that men like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin in the United States were Masons. The American Revolution itself was influenced by networks of men who gathered in lodges, where new ideas could be debated without the censorship of the crown. Later, the French Revolution would also see the participation of Masons in its early stages. For Spain and its colonies, this was deeply suspicious. The Catholic Church condemned Masonry as heretical, and the crown feared that these secret societies were places where loyalty to Spain would be questioned. Still, the lodges spread. In a Spanish port city connected to the Americas, Masonic lodges became a meeting point for young men from Latin America studying or trading in Europe. Asterisk, the arrival of Masonry in Latin America. Asterisk, by the late 1700s, Masonic influence reached the Americas through two main channels: travelers, who had been exposed to lodges in Europe, and Caribbean lodges that connected French, English, and Spanish colonies. Venezuela quickly became part of this network. The colony had a strong elite class. Criollos, the descendants of Europeans born in America who were educated, traveled abroad, and often frustrated by the restrictions of Spanish rule. Lodges offered them a way to connect with like-minded men, to share books, and to quietly discuss ideas of reform and independence. One of the earliest Venezuelans to engage directly with Masonry abroad was Francisco de Miranda. Born in Caracas in 1750, Miranda traveled widely. He fought in the American Revolution, visited Russia, lived in France, and joined Masonic lodges in Europe. He believed in the dream of an independent Latin America, and he worked tirelessly to connect leaders, intellectuals, and military men through these secret networks. This earned him the title of El Precursor, the precursor of independence. Asterisk, the Gual and España conspiracy of 1797. Asterisk, but before Miranda or could launch their campaigns, Venezuela saw its very first attempt to overthrow the crown. The conspiracy of Gual and España in 1797. Manuel Gual, a military officer, and España, a lawyer, were inspired by both the French and American revolutions. They envisioned a republic with equality before the law, the abolition of slavery, and freedom from Spain. Radical ideas for the time, their plan spread through Caracas and La Guaira, gathering supporters. Historians debate whether Masonry directly guided their actions, but it is clear that their networks overlapped with circles influenced by lodges in Europe and the Caribbean. In the end, the conspiracy was betrayed. Spanish authorities crushed the movement. Gual fled into exile. España was captured and executed. His body was dismembered, and his head displayed in Caracas as a warning. The message from Spain was clear. Any attempt at rebellion would be met with terror. But the seed had been planted. The dream of independence had been spoken aloud and could not be erased. Community prompt. Have you ever heard of Gual and España before today? Type if this is new for you, or if you already knew this forgotten story. Francisco de Miranda, the precursor *. After the failure of Gual and España, Francisco de Miranda became the symbol of the next stage. He had seen Masonry in Europe, joined lodges, and participated in revolutions abroad. In the United States, he met leaders of independence. In France, he joined the revolutionaries. Miranda returned to Venezuela with grand plans. In 1810, when the Caracas elite moved to form a junta and break ties with Spain, Miranda was welcomed as a leader. He signed Venezuela's first Declaration of Independence in 1811 and is remembered as the first to raise the tricolor flag. Today's Venezuelan flag, but his project collapsed in the face of Spanish resistance. Miranda was eventually arrested and died in prison in an Iten-Barbate-e-Chalut. Still, his role as the precursor remains. He was the bridge between European Masonry, revolutionary ideals, and the eventual wars of independence in Latin America. The liberator, the torch then passed to. Born into a wealthy Caracas family, traveled to Europe in his youth. In Paris, he witnessed the Napoleonic era. He came into contact with Masonic lodges. These experiences shaped his vision of freedom for Venezuela and beyond. Was initiated into Masonry. Historians point to lodges in and possibly Paris, and his writings reflect Masonic themes: brotherhood, liberty, and the unity of nations. His dream of Gran Colombia, a united federation of Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and beyond, echoed the idea of universal brotherhood promoted by Masonry, but was not a Mason forever. Later in his career, he distanced himself, even opposing lodges when he felt they interfered with politics. Still, the influence on his early formation is undeniable. Community prompt. Do you think S dream of a united Latin America was ever realistic? Comment if you think it could have worked, or if it was doomed from the start. Masonry across Latin America. The Venezuelan case was not unique. In Argentina and Chile, José de San Martín and Bernardo O'Higgins were tied to the Lautaro Lodge, a society influenced by Masonry that organized military campaigns. In Mexico, priests Miguel Hidalgo and Morelos carried revolutionary ideas in circles touched by Masonic influence. Everywhere, the lodges provided secrecy, organization, and international connections. They did not always lead revolutions, but they gave them a place to grow. They were schools of liberty in societies where speaking openly meant punishment. The Catholic clash, but Masonry was never popular with everyone. The Catholic Church viewed it as a threat. Secret oaths, foreign symbols, loyalty to a brotherhood beyond the faith. Papal bulls condemned Freemasonry throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. In Latin America, where the church was deeply woven into daily life, this tension created suspicion. For many faithful Catholics, Masonry was not a force of liberty, but a dangerous elite, manipulating politics behind closed doors. This dual perception, liberators to some, traitors to others, remains part of Masonry's legacy in Latin America. Conclusion and next episode, Hook. By the 1820s, much of Latin America had declared independence. Venezuela, Argentina, Chile, Mexico, all broke free from Spain. And in almost every case, Masonry played a part, as inspiration, as a meeting ground, or as a network connecting leaders across borders. But was Masonry the hero of the story, or simply a tool of ambitious elites? That question remains. Community prompt: what do you think? Were the Masons liberators, villains, or just opportunists who used the moment? Comment your view. I want to see the debate. And one final question remains open: how much of this story was influenced by the Masons of the United States? George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and other American leaders were part of lodges that shaped the first modern republic. Did their networks tie directly into Latin America's revolutions? That's a mystery we'll uncover in the next video. So subscribe if you want to keep digging into the hidden connections of history, because the story of Masonry and independence is far from over.